Today we face the monsters that are at our door and bring the fight to them. Today we are canceling the apocalypse.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today we're going to be talking about the Vermont Lake Monsters. They are currently a collegiate summer level team. From 1994 until 2020, they were an affiliated Class A short season team. Later on in this episode, I will be speaking with Jason Klein from the design firm Brandiose. I'll be speaking with our very own wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett, and of course, designer Dan Simon will be here with one of his Studio Simon Stumpers. Right now, I am so pleased to be joined by the Senior Vice President for the Vermont Lake Monsters, CJ Knudsen. CJ, how are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. It's a snowy day here in Vermont right now, and we're getting ready for opening day. So looking forward to some sunshine. So it's time flies by. In the fall, it goes very slow, and then this time of year, it comes rather quickly here.
So it's I've said many times before, it's an audio medium. It's not a video podcast, but you have over your right shoulder on the wall behind you a poster or a book. I think it's a poster, and it says "The True Story of Champ." And that's what we are here to tell today is the true story of Champ. Why is this team in Burlington, Vermont called the Vermont Lake Monsters?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show here. It really all started back in 2005. So we were the last Expos in baseball, and we decided to change our name. And so to kind of, remember the Expos, we were lucky enough to have the ESPN Sports Center broadcast live as part of their 50 and 50 states in 2005. During that time, we did a name your team contest. We had about 30,000 entries and suggestions, which was amazing. We ended up buying the URL, nametheteam.com, $20 years ago, and people loved it. And we got all sorts of different names and suggestions, and it kind of landed with the most popular one being the Vermont Lake Monsters. And as a celebration and a recognition of the legendary lake monster named Champ that lives in Lake Champlain, which is a large body of water up in between Vermont and New York.
All right, well, this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Champ, the lake monster. We'll talk about the baseball team too here, but Champ, the lake monster. How long have you been in Vermont?
I was born in New York, but moved to Vermont when I was 3. And
Okay.
Champ's been around a very, very long time. And nobody really knows how long he's been around. But Samuel D. Champlain, which is named after the lake, or the lake's named after him. He was the first one to kind of see him and discover him. I think it's 1609. And Champ's been with us at all of our baseball games ever since.
Have you ever seen Champ?
Well, at the ballpark, I see him every single day, and I see him in the concession stand because he loves hot dogs and ice cream and things like that. But on the boat, every now and then, I think he pops his head up, and so I could have sworn I've seen him a couple times.
Is it annoying to you that they stole the idea of Champ the Lake Monster over there in Loch Ness with the Loch Ness Monster? It was our idea first, don't you think?
I think so. I think we had it first. I think Champ was in Lake Champlain prior to the Loch Ness, and but Champ, our Champ is a little more friendly, and he loves baseball and loves cheering on the Lake Monsters.
So this, you mentioned the Vermont Expos, and the team changed its name from the Expos to the Lake Monsters, but Champ precedes that name change because the old Vermont Lake Monsters logo actually had the letter V with the Champ, the lake monster, swimming through it. So Champ has been with the team for a long time. What was the process of deciding, okay, we have this mascot who we like and who the fans like. We're gonna change our team brand to be based on that mascot, but we're not actually naming the team the Champs. Like, we're not the Champs, we're the Lake Monsters. What was that process?
Yeah, I mean, really from the first pitch in 1994 at Centennial Field in Burlington, Vermont, Champ was there, and really, kids loved Champ. They loved getting a high five from him, a hug, a photo with him, and then he became so popular that we ended up ordering some Champ dolls, which kids loved, and then it really kind of took on its own life of its own merchandise line, and really Champ was the most identifiable figure in our organization since we were a minor league baseball team, professional baseball players that come and go literally overnight sometimes. And so you're not really marketing or branding players per se, because they could be moving up to the majors or getting released. And so Champ's the one thing that we could identify and market the team. And Champ was always there. So you know that you're guaranteed to see Champ when you come to the game. And so that was really kind of the premise of, he's at every game and he is the identifier for the franchise. And people just absolutely love him. And he's active year round. Even though the lake's frozen this time of year, he's still seems to get outside the lake and go to birthday parties or corporate events or charity parades, things like that. And so he's been wonderful to deal with, and he's really one of the reasons why this franchise has been really successful. And this year we'll end up drawing about 100,000 people, and they're coming to see not only great baseball, but really see Champ dance on the dugout.
You had in 2005, when you unveiled this new team name, you had a much more serious look than the one that currently exists with the team and has since, I believe, 2012 is when the current iteration of the logo was unveiled. And that was grandiose back in their Plan B days. So we'll talk to Jason Klein about that later on in this episode. But the decision to go from this very serious dragon, or not a dragon, I guess a lake monster with a yellow bat in his mouth and a fierce look on his eyes, and sort of, a lot of movement, a lot of forward motion, a sort of very pointy type, right? Like the M in Lake Monsters and the S's are all very, very pointy. You moved from a fierce pointy logo to what can only be described as a cuddly rounded logo about 7 years in. What was the thinking there?
I think it was really, the original Lake Monster logo really didn't look like Champ. The Champ that's at the ball games, Champ that has his plush doll, things like that. And so I think that was the thought process of make it look a little more identifying as Champ himself. And I think that was an unbelievable decision that made a lot of sense. And from a retail standpoint, people really embraced it, and it makes sense. We have the logos, the coloring of Champ looks just like Champ, and again, that's what really the identifier is for the ball club.
Yeah, it's a fun logo, and I had it. Well, I'm proud to say this. I had it on a T-shirt that it was an XL, and then I started running, and now the XL shirt doesn't fit me anymore. So I got to come back and
right.
And get another shirt. But I was there in 2015. It was part of the first ever Baseball Palooza road trip that I take with friends. And at the time, it was a short season single A team. Now, of course, it's a collegiate wood bat team. So I'm curious how that transition has gone from you in terms of how you market the team. Obviously, the brand has stayed the same, but is it a different process for you marketing this team at a different level of baseball?
It is. COVID obviously canceled the entire minor league baseball season 2020, and then also the minor league baseball agreement between Major League Baseball expired, and so then baseball changed, the landscape changed. So the Lake Monsters trying to figure out where they're going to land, if they were going to stay in professional baseball. Unfortunately, they were not offered a minor league baseball opportunity, so they were just trying to decide if they're going to maybe go to a different league. Then the Futures League kind of popped up, and it's made a world of difference. We've had a handful of Vermonters play for the Lake Monsters now since 2021, which is unbelievable. There's only one or two or three guys in the 25-year history prior to that, when we were with the Expos, Nationals, and A's that played for Lake Monsters or even had a chance to play for them. And now we have 5, 6, 7 guys a year that are from Vermont, scattered across Vermont. So now more than ever, we're Vermont's team, and we also have the best players still in the country. So guys from the Division I top seed programs come here. They love staying in Burlington, Vermont. They all stay with host families, and so when we relaunched the franchise in 2021, it was a little different, but the fans love it even more. Because there's some local players in the team. And then little league kids can strive to play for the Lake Monsters in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so from marketing the team, we're actually able to market the players a little more. For example, Colby Brulette, who's from Georgia, Vermont. He's going to be with us again this year, and he's been with us for 4 years now, which when it was the Expos or the A's or Nationals, I mean, it would be You might have a guy here for a summer, maybe a second summer. If they're back for a second year, then it's probably not a great sign for them because they're not really moving up or making progress. But from our standpoint, we can now start to market the players a little bit along with Champ, and so it's been really well received. Attendance numbers have been great. This past year we drew about a little shy of 84,000. We had a ton of rainouts, and the rain in the Northeast this past summer was tough, but this year we expect to draw about 100,000 fans, and so people are really coming out to the ballpark. We've done some major modifications to it. The field itself was built in 1906. The grandstands in 1922, and we've added a bunch of fan amenities to the ballpark. So I mean, it's a great experience. So I know you were there in 2015, Paul, but it's definitely encourage you to come back out because you'd recognize the ballpark, but there's some beautiful fan amenities to go along with some great players.
One of the things that you do very well is your variety of ice cream helmets. I have a significant ice cream helmet collection that is sort of my pride and joy. I've got two children, but the ice cream helmet collection is the pride and joy here. And I probably have like 6 or 7 different versions of the Lake Monsters helmets because you all, change them up every so often. And so I appreciate that for the collection. That's fun. But obviously that's something that you all decided intentionally to do.
Yeah, it's and we love different logos, and we love different names and identities. A few years ago, we ended up changing our identity to Vermont Maple Kings, for a game, which is a kind of a tribute to the maple sugaring industry up here. Obviously, we do a tribute night every year to the Vermont Expos, so we wear old school Vermont Expos uniforms. And then actually this past spring, spring of 2023, we ended up launching a new brand called the Vermont Creamies. So Vermont Creamies, which people may not know what a creamy is, which is kind of the reason why we did it. But it's the Vermont's version of a soft serve or a twist, and or maybe even a frozen custard, some might say. But that's been really well received, and people love the hats, love the Vermont Creamy merchandise, and again, it's a way for us to give you a little tribute to the creamy industry up here, and it's been a lot of fun.
So you just jumped 3 of my questions there. You just anticipated 3 of my questions there. I was going to ask, obviously about the Maple Kings and the Creamies as alternate brands that you have. You touched on the fact that you play as the Vermont Expos. There's a lot of nostalgia for that Expos brand, right? Like no one thinks poorly about the Expos, right? Like everyone, I think, sort of, even though the Stade Olympique was not exactly the best place to watch a ball game necessarily, but I think everyone has sort of fond memories about the Expos. You all, in a way, are living, breathing remnants of that brand. Do you think, benefited from that sort of Expos nostalgia by being able to bust out those old Vermont Expos brands?
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I think with us being so close to the Canadian border, we're about an hour and 20 minutes away from Montreal. We purposely do a Vermont Expos night, and when we choose to do it, we try to usually put it on a weekend, so that way people can drive down from Montreal and see the guys in the uniforms. This past summer we had Orlando Cabrera join us, and so he came out to the ballpark throughout the first pitch, sign some autographs, meet some fans, take some photos. It's a great way for us to kind of, again, pay tribute to Montreal and to our original brand, which was launched in 1994. And people still love the logo. They love the retro Vermont Expos logo. We still sell a lot of merchandise with that, the hats and T-shirts, and and again, it's a way for our fans to remember maybe the good old days, and it's fun for our players to wear those uniforms as well.
And then you mentioned the Maple Kings. This is a really fun one. It is a bottle of syrup, essentially carrying a bucket of syrup from having tapped a maple tree and tapping the syrup. Is that part of your experience as a Vermonter? Is that something that you've gone out and done? I don't even know the terminology for it, but gone out and tapped a tree to get the syrup?
I have, yeah, and it's actually it's a lot of fun. I mean, growing up in Vermont, you actually learn a lot about the maple syrup sugaring industry, and sometimes you're lucky enough, even with your school, to go out and watch a tree getting tapped, and maybe at the end have some maple syrup or some maple candy, which is even better. But I have done it myself. It's a lot of fun, and it takes a long time to make maple syrup. It takes about 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. So, but it's definitely worth the wait, and there's nothing like it. I mean, Vermont makes the best maple syrup in the world, and especially when you make it yourself, it tastes even better.
Well, I do have an ice cream helmet with the Maple Kings logo on it. What I don't have yet, and I don't know that this even exists, I'm hoping that if it doesn't yet, it will someday, is an ice cream helmet with the Vermont Creamies logo on it. Can you tell me is Creamies an actual store there, or is it a fictional brand that you all made up? I'm showing my ignorance of Vermont, but is there a place called Creamies where I could go get ice cream?
Uh, Sort of, and that's kind of the cool thing about the word creamy itself is that's just kind of a Vermont term. It's been around since as long as I can remember, and that's what you call going to an ice cream stand. Is let's go get a creamy, and they're really good, and the best ones are actually the maple creamies. So maple creamies taste unbelievable, and so that's what we're trying to figure out as what we're going to do with that brand. If we're going to play as the Vermont Creamies in 2024 as one game, again as a tribute to that. Right now we're selling T-shirts and hats with the logo. People love it, and so I think and we've gotten orders literally from every single state in the country, every single state in the U.S. here, and so it's been a lot of fun. So now it's kind of the next step to decide if we're going to play as a Creamy, Vermont Creamies for one game in 2024.
So far, this is just a brand. It hasn't actually appeared on the field.
Correct. Right now, it's just a brand, and the brand's kind of building, and the excitement's there, and so it's trying to figure out when to take it to the next level.
Well, I think when I get my new Lake Monsters t-shirt, I may have to get this Creamies t-shirt. This podcast cost me a lot of money, by the way. Like sometimes people start a podcast and they're like, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money with advertisers and sponsorships. And no, every time I do one of these episodes, I'm like, I need that shirt and I need that shirt.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the support, Paul. And as you know, it's working in baseball, and really it's a community effort, and really drawing people from the community, and a lot of communities unfortunately don't have baseball teams, and so we're thrilled that we were able to relaunch so successfully in the Burlington market. Last year we had 9 games televised. We should have a lot more televised in 2024. So it's been a ton of fun here.
Well, like I said, it's been, it'll be 9 years this season since I've been to a game there. So I think you're right that it's time to get back. I am in a relationship with someone who is from New Hampshire, and so it would not be that hard to get from New Hampshire to Burlington, Vermont. In fact, that was the drive we took that year in Baseball Palooza. We started with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, and then game 2 was the Vermont Lake Monsters. So
Awesome.
It's very easily done. So I could absolutely see getting back there. And in the meantime, I think I need to go find one of these Creamies t-shirts. What do you think? Creamies logo on an ice cream helmet? You guys are game for that, right?
Yeah, I think that's something for us to definitely take a look at. It's they're really, really tasty, and they look really cool, and people are really embracing it. It's been a ton of fun, and it was an idea that we kind of came up with in the off season, and we're like, what are we gonna do with this? And we're still not sure, but people are really loving it.
Absolutely. Well, it is great. And the overall Lake Monster story is great. We're going to talk to Ranger Amy Burnett about the cryptozoology side of this, the story of Champ, the Lake Monster. In the meantime, CJ, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the history of this brand and some of these different alternates. Thank you so much, and good luck preparing for the new season, and hope to see you in 2024, 2025.
That'd be great, Paul. We'd love to have you at the ballpark. Again, Centennial Field's never looked better, and this year actually marks our 30th season. So it's been pretty exciting, and can't wait for a fun, sunny summer.
Me too. I agree with that. Thank you, CJ. This has been so much fun. Where can people find you on social media, either you personally or the team itself?
Yeah, people can go to our website, VermontLakeMonsters.com, where they can find us all on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much every single one. And look for the Vermont Lake Monsters, or even the Vermont Creamies on them.
Fantastic. Thank you, CJ. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care. Go Monsters.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. So pleased to welcome Jason Klein of Brandiose back to the podcast. Jason, hello.
We're here. We did it. This is going to be a fun one.
This is a fun one. This is one of my all-time favorites. This is a brand. I bought a cap from this team with the logo that you created on one of the very first Baseball Palooza road trips that I take with my college buddies. This one's a decade old now. It's hard to believe, but this is the Vermont Lake Monsters Their
Yeah.
Champ based logo. This is sort of, it must have been an interesting design process for you because the team name already existed.
Yeah.
They had some, real serious, like sort of, dinosaur looking, like real dragon looking lake monsters. And then they wanted to go much rounder, much friendlier, much more family friendly with their brand here. So what were your considerations when you were creating this logo based on a team mascot that already existed?
Yeah, and you don't get a lot of this happening. Usually it has the logo first, the mascot comes second.
Yeah.
But they were the Vermont Expos
Oh yeah.
originally, and they had the Lake Monster in the V. Then they had their brand updated a couple years later. Again, a Lake Monster. But one of the things that is interesting about the Vermont Lake Monsters is that Champ, their mascot, is, dare I say, more famous than the baseball team, right? So more like super incredibly famous. Like, there was a point in which they were discussing a Champ local public access TV show, right? Kind of like Barney, but like with Champ. Champ is the. I honestly believe that if the baseball team ceased to exist, Champ could go on as a local icon and character. It's just that important. And so when we started working with them, they were like, Champ's a focus. And I was like, yeah, do we want to do like a sort of a monster? And they're like, I don't know. I think like we just want to like make it look like Champ.
Uh-huh.
And so then it was like, okay, well, what if Champ was an actual lake monster? What if it was, in in the lake, and it was something where the character was a physical manifestation of a real thing. So that was where we had this idea of like, okay, well, how do we go the opposite? Normally you take something serious and make it silly. Could we take something silly and make it serious? So we worked on developing this logo where he's kind of creeping up and sliding through the water. Champ is also like fluorescent green. So it was a really cool opportunity to use fluorescent green embroidery, this neon green in a way that I don't know had been used in pro sports before. Even the Seahawks, green was a little more tamed down, if you will.
Yeah.
So, developing Champ, the Lake Monsters lettering, we wanted to make feel like the mascot. And then, what has been appropriately nicknamed like the Ninja Turtles cap. They wanted their version of the Lake Elsinore Storm eyes. And we're like, well, like I don't want to do a straight rip. Like, what if it was the idea that you put on the hat and you became a lake monster? And so that's how the alternate cap came about.
So this was the same year that you all did the El Paso Chihuahuas. So
Yeah.
this was, there was the culture of minor league baseball was ramping up at this point to have, the more sort of extreme logos. Do you recall? I mean, I always laugh because I borrow this quote from you all the time, but you say that the El Paso Chihuahuas was like one of the strongest, the most extreme J curves that you ever had, like the strongest negative reaction, and then a really, inverse positive reaction immediately after. This Lake Monsters brand, do you recall what kind of reaction it got? If you can think back 10 years, what kind of reaction did it get?
There are some times where you just kind of like, there's already, it's not like you're introducing a brand. It has existed, right? So you're not introducing a brand. It is, your job is really to turn up the juice, if you will. Like, we just want to turn up the volume in a way that people go, yes, more of this, more of this. So I don't remember any negativity. I think this is one of those opportunities where it was like just positive all around. Like, this is great. This character that we love is now replacing this, fictitious lake monster that we don't really identify with.
I mean, it's funny how many different versions of this monster have existed. You mentioned the Vermont Expos, and they had like this sort of gray version, as you mentioned, coming through the letter V. And then there was the more sort of serious one that looked like a monster. And then to bring it back, I was hoping you would say that there was not a negative reaction, because it really does seem like what you did was you gave Champ, the lake monster, the treatment he deserved. And this one feels right to me in terms of Champ. Did you go to Vermont? Did you actually get out on Lake Champlain and see if Champ was out there? All right.
We did. We unfortunately, Champ did not show its face Is that like that sounds too Puxatawny Phil? But
I
no,
thought you
we
were going to
did.
tell me maybe there was like a third Brandiose partner who'd never made it out of Lake Champlain. It was like you, Casey, and
Yes.
Ted, and Ted
How
didn't
did
make
you
it.
know? How did you
It's like
know?
the fifth Beatle.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. No, Burlington was super cool. It was
Yeah.
so fun. The whole staff was great, taking us around. The food was incredible. It was super fun. It was
Yeah.
really, it was a real treat. If you ever get an opportunity to go to Burlington, it's a lot of fun.
We were there for Baseball Palooza. We went and saw a fish cover band. It was, yeah, we did the whole Burlington thing. We went to the Ben and Jerry's factory on the way. We
Yeah.
we did the whole Vermont thing there. So, Jason, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this decade-old project of yours. This is like I said, one you should see my Vermont Lake Monsters cap. It is like all faded and well loved.
Love it. I love it. Glad to hear it.
Brandiose is on all the socials at Brandiose and online at brandiose.com. Jason, thank you. We'll talk to you again.
Talk to you soon.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I am very pleased once again to welcome back to the podcast our very own wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett. Ranger Amy, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
We are talking here again about some cryptozoology. We are talking about Champ the lake monster, who is Vermont's very own Loch Ness monster from your native part of the world. You were born in New Hampshire.
I was, yeah, right on the coast.
Is it offensive to
Not near any lakes that could have housed lake monsters.
is it offensive to lump New Hampshire and Vermont in together like that?
Wouldn't say it's offensive, but
All right, let's talk about Champ the lake monster. What do we know? What kind of creature is Champ the lake monster?
Champ the lake monster is a dark-colored, snake-like creature from the depths.
Creature from the depths.
Creature from the depths.
Okay.
You know, Lake Champlain, how deep do you think it is?
I think it is 400
Roughly.
feet deep.
Hey, that's a pretty... Did you learn that from one of your other guests?
No, I didn't.
That was a total guess?
I just guessed.
Oh, well, in the deepest place, it's 400 feet deep. That's pretty good.
I nailed it like to the foot. Are we high-fiving?
High five.
First ever podcast high five.
Haha.
Not just this podcast, but any podcast.
Yeah, I doubt that. But yeah, I mean, it was roughly 400 feet deep in the deepest part. So it could house a monster. What do you think? Do you think it's real?
What kind of pressure would that put on a critter living down there? Like, what can survive at 400 feet deep?
Oh, a lot of fish,
Oh.
a lot of different things. Whales, seals. I mean, if you're talking like the seacoast, New Hampshire, we used to go fishing in 400 feet of water and we pull up fish.
All right, so Champ, what are we looking at here? He's a big, dark,
Dark,
snake-like creature.
creature, not unlike the Loch Ness monster. Did I tell you that I went to Scotland
Yes, we've.
over the summer?
I don't know if we've ever said it on the podcast, but yes, we do know that you've been to Scotland.
Hashtag humble brag.
Okay.
And I actually went to Loch Ness
All right.
this summer, and I went and I looked for the Loch Ness monster.
So you have been, as a person who grew up in New Hampshire,
Mhm.
immediately adjacent to Vermont, you have been to Loch Ness, but not Lake Champlain.
Lake Champlain, correct.
Okay. So what do we think, like, you know, these cryptids, they're based in something, right? Like they're based in sightings, and maybe, I don't know, it's like an
Yeah.
optical illusion or whatever. But what do we think that Champ could be actually in real life? What are people seeing when they say, because you have a picture of a sign with all the sightings of Champ the lake
I
monster.
do. There've been over 300 sightings.
What are people seeing?
People are seeing things that are 100 feet long. So the first sighting is actually credited to French cartographer Samuel de Champlain.
What have I told you about accents on this podcast?
I thought you would just pronounce his name for me. Samuel de Champlain, French for cartographer. How's that? He is the lake's namesake, and he was credited with the first sighting of Champ. So he was actually credited in seeing it first in 1609. But then, after some research, they found out, well, he actually saw, what he saw was a monster in the St. Lawrence River, which is about 300 miles away from there. So a little too far upstream for a lake monster.
And this guy was a cartographer?
I think they didn't have the internet back then.
This is why I don't trust French maps.
So apparently he wasn't the first person. So that was 1609. The second sighting of Champ, or second documented sighting, which is actually the first sighting, was in 1819, and a Captain Crumb sighted. I love the name Captain Crumb. He sighted a lake monster eye.
So
In the
that was
lake.
210 years later, probably like
Yeah.
son of Champ.
Son of Champ.
Yeah.
But the first sighting, he was only supposed to be like 20 feet long.
Oh.
Captain Crumb, because you know that captains like to exaggerate, he was supposed to be about 187 feet long. How do you get about
I was gonna say,
187? It's pretty
That is
exact.
a very
It
specific
is
number.
very specific. And he saw Champ from about 200 yards away.
Okay.
But he said it was followed by 2 large sturgeon and a billfish, and had 3 teeth and eyes the color of peeled onions.
3 teeth and eyes the color of peeled onions.
The monster had a belt of red around its neck and a white star on its forehead.
I would like to see the Vermont Lake Monsters baseball team revisit their mascot and logo to make sure that it has 3 eyes the colors of peeled onion.
Not 3 eyes, but 3 teeth.
It had 3 teeth?
3 teeth.
Oh, it needed to floss.
3 teeth and eyes the color of peeled onions. And but everyone says, well, how did he see it from that distance and see it with that? I think, Captain Crumb might have been, sipping a little bit of.
He might have had peeled onions in his own eyes.
I think that he had a little sip of what was down in the hull.
All right.
He was
So
drinking a little bit, but can't really trust a captain. They always exaggerate these fish stories.
that's true.
So to your question, that was a long answer. It was most likely a fish.
Okay. There are probably sturgeon in Lake Champlain.
Well, you kind of hit it on the nose.
Oh.
Someone suggested it was a garfish. Now, alligator gar, there was one in Texas caught recently that was humongous, looked like a lake monster. They let it and that thing was 100 inches long.
Yeah.
So that's pretty long fish.
Yeah.
They actually let it go.
Okay.
It swam off, and it looked like pretty much like a sea monster.
My understanding of garfish is that they love lasagna, hate Mondays.
You spent a long time thinking about that.
I did not. I thought of it right away. I was just waiting for a chance to talk.
Oh my gosh. All right, I laughed at that one. But yes, sturgeon fish that's my guess. And I didn't read that anywhere, so
You're surmising.
I'm surmising, and so did you. We both came up with the same thing. And sturgeon are long, kind of like a lake monster, right? When you see a sturgeon poking its head out of the water, what does it look like?
Looks like Champ the Lake Monster. Yeah. And if you saw maybe a couple of those in a row.
If you had a couple of beers in you, don't drink it till the mountains are blue, as they sing, as the song goes, on the pontoon. I think that you could.
I think you are making that song up.
Please, someone tweet that you know the song I'm talking about. But I think that a sturgeon would very much look like a lake monster. And sturgeons have these kind of cool ridges along their back. It actually makes them look even more like a monster.
Yeah. So if you're a cartographer in 1609 or a captain in 1819 and you see a sturgeon,
yep,
pretty likely you're going to be like, oh, monster.
Yeah.
No other explanation. There's a monster.
It's a monster. I mean, because who's going to prove it? They'll be like, well, where's the cell phone pin? But you know what? Thank goodness we have those people making things up, because now we have Champ, the mascot for the Lake Monsters.
Champ is a great mascot for the Lake Monsters. It's a fun logo. It's a fun brand. One last question for you. If it is a sturgeon, what do we think about sturgeon as a baseball player? You think they'd be a good baseball player?
I think they're kind of bony. So they definitely have not the heaviest, not the biggest player on the team, right? Bony.
Who's the player that we just learned about? Hambony. No, what's his name?
Master Boney.
Master Boney.
Master Boney.
Miles Mastroboni of the Chicago Cubs. Yeah, this is maybe Mastroboni is a bony sturgeon.
I think as a baseball player, the Lake Monster would be a great stealer of bases, because no one sees him.
Well, Ranger Amy, thank you very much. Everyone can go find you and all of your cryptid theories on Twitter at Ranger Amy and on Instagram at The Real Ranger Amy.
Well, I hope I haven't disappointed anyone who wanted to think that was real.
All right, next week, Ranger Amy will be on to talk about the Tooth Fairy.
It's not an animal.
Bye.
Bye.
Part of everyone. Welcome back. What a pleasure to have my good friend, Dan Simon, road trip buddy, Dan Simon. Dan, good morning. How are you doing? We're here for Studio Simon Stumpers.
Is that why we're here? I am not surprisingly doing fantastically well. I'm back from a great vacation to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Manchester, England.
Mm.
And right ahead of us this coming weekend, maybe not when this airs, but in real life, you, Ranger Amy, Anna DiTomaso, and myself are all going to get together for a weekend minor league baseball road trip, and looking forward to that.
At the moment this episode drops, we will be just back from that road trip. So it's something I'm very much looking forward to. Did you see any minor league baseball logo hats or shirts or anything in Ireland or in Manchester?
Not that I can recall. I'll tell you what you do see. If you're going to see anything from the States, it's a New York Yankees cap.
Oh, yeah.
That's gotten to the point where it's no longer people who are just following the team. It's become a fashion staple for men, women, and children.
One time I was in New Zealand, and the first 12 hours that I was there, my whole goal was just to like stay on my feet so as to not sit down and fall asleep, because I was trying to adjust to the time zone. And I discovered in Wellington, New Zealand, this like tiny little shop that sold only Major League Baseball hats. And I asked the guy who was working there, I'm like, do people care about the teams? Like, do people follow Major League Baseball here? And he said, no, it's all fashion. And sure enough, I saw a guy later on that same day crossing the street wearing a Phillies cap. And I was like, hey, go Phils. And he was like, what are you talking about? And so he had no idea what I meant by any of it. So anyway, we are not here to talk about Ireland or New Zealand or even Major League Baseball. We are here to talk about the Vermont Lake Monsters. So let's, I wonder, gosh, there's where it's the world of cryptozoology. It's teams named for mascots. It's the last team to play as the Expos. So many possibilities.
Well, where we're going to go into the lake. So let's talk about Lake Champlain, shall we?
Let's do it. Let's talk about Lake Champlain, home to Champ the Lake Monster.
Okay, that's home of Champ. Now, two of these facts about Lake Champlain are true.
Okay.
One is not.
Two truths and a lie.
All right. So our studio Simon Stumper today asks, which of these is not a true fact about Lake Champlain? Is it A, it was once a saltwater sea? B, it was the location for the filming of the D-Day invasion of Normandy opening scene of Saving Private Ryan? Or C, it was once a Great Lake?
I'm very curious about this. So the one that I am going to dismiss automatically as true is the first one, that it was once a saltwater sea, because there's sort of a running gag in the nature tourism world and the nature interpretation world that like you can point to sort of anywhere in the continent and say, this was once a vast inland sea. So I'm going to say it was once a saltwater sea. Now, that leaves it was the spot where they filmed the Normandy invasion, and I don't have any sense for how big this lake is, so I don't know if that one can be true or not. Or it was once a Great Lake. Now, the whole idea of it being a Great Lake feels like sort of a man-made construction to me. Like it's not like we're looking back in prehistory and being like, this was once a Great Lake, unless there's some determination for what makes a Great Lake a Great Lake. So that one feels like the hardest to prove, unless like, you know, when cartographers were first having at North America, they were like, here's the Great Lakes, and one of them is this Lake Champlain over here. That probably, I'll bet you that's it. All right. I'm going to say it was once a vast inland saltwater sea. It was once considered one of the Great Lakes in the early days of cartography, and that it was not a filming site for Saving Private Ryan.
Okay. You are correct. Your answer is correct.
Okay.
Your reasoning for the two being that are true, one was correct, one was in effect incorrect. So
Mm.
let's talk about that.
Okay.
So first of all, you're correct about it being once being a saltwater sea. 13,000 years ago, I was not present to see this myself. Marine waters from the St. Lawrence estuary partially fed the basin. And now when I say partially, it still also got a lot of fresh water coming down from the Adirondack Mountains on the New York side and I believe they're called the Green Mountains on the Vermont side. Also filled the basin, but there was salt water coming in from all the way over from the Atlantic Ocean.
Do you know the word for that? Do you know the word for half saltwater, half freshwater?
Halvesies.
Halvesies. That word is brackish.
Ah, well then it was indeed brackish.
It was a vast brackish sea.
But changes to the topography 10,000 years ago, which I was there to witness, cut that off and it transitioned to a fully freshwater lake. So yes, it was once salt water in a brackish capacity. It was also once a Great Lake, but it does not go back to early days of cartography and whatnot. Believe it or not, and when I read this, it's like, how did I not hear about this? On March 6th, 1998,
Holy smokes.
President Bill Clinton signed Senate Bill 927, making Lake Champlain a sixth Great Lake. However, 18 days later, the bill was rescinded, making Lake Champlain just a very big lake once again.
A very good lake.
Apparently, people who had anything to say about the previously existing 5 Great Lakes cried foul about making Lake Champlain a lake. It is indeed a very big lake. However, it is nowhere near the size of the Great Lakes. It's not even like half the size of the smallest Great Lake. So how that came to be, I have no idea, like how that bill ever got started in the first place. But it's kind of funny. You sign something into, I guess, law, and 18 days later you go, whoops, my bad. So,
right. It's a little bit like Pluto being a planet or not. Like the suddenly the decision that Pluto is no longer a planet.
Well, but that wasn't even a sudden thing. Pluto was a planet for a really, really long time.
Right.
And then they say, you know what?
Right. All of a sudden, Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, nah.
Like, this has been on the books for so long. Anyway, this was only on the books for 18 days. And then they decided, nah, just kidding. Okay. So it was not the filming location for the D-Day invasion of Normandy and the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. That was filmed, if I'm not mistaken, actually in Ireland somewhere.
Oh, in Ireland. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've been to Vermont and I have been to the beaches of Normandy, and the two don't look much alike in my mind. So I would have been surprised if they had found a spot on Lake Champlain that looked enough like the beaches of Normandy to do any filming there. But, you know, they can work magic with cinema these days. So have you ever been? Have you been to Lake Champlain or to Burlington, Vermont?
Yeah, I've been to Vermont, but not the lake.
Okay. Well, everyone who follows this podcast or follows me on social media knows that I'm a huge lover of lists. And so, you know, the state list is definitely high on mine. Although now that I've been to all 50, I've had to, you know, create new state lists, different things that I've done in all the states. So
well, maybe Bill Clinton will he can't run again, but if he did, maybe he would sign into law a new 51st state just to give people something to a new thing to check off their state list. But you'd have to get there fast because 18 days later that rescinded as
now
well.
Would it count, like if they made DC or Puerto Rico states, and I've been to both of those places, would I have to visit them as states? This is a little bit like my question of, if I have seen the Sacramento River Cats play, have I been to the 31st Major League Baseball stadium next year? So although it wouldn't be the 31st.
Well, my opinion of that is, you having visited DC would count if it ever got made into a state, which if you ask me, it should be.
Right.
That would count as having visited the state because you've been there. But I think you would have to see a major league game in Sacramento for that to count as you visiting a major league park.
We're going to have lots of time to discuss this on the road in South Carolina, part 2 of our many-parted tradition for years to come of the, we still don't have a name for it, Dan, Anna, Ranger Amy, Paul Palooza. In the meantime, find Dan and all of his work on Instagram at studio_Simon, online at studiosimon.net. Dan, thank you so much for bringing your Lake Champlain Studio Simon Stumper. We'll see you again next week.
See you then.